Yes,
So, good. Thank you, guys. So, good day from wherever in the world you're joining us. And again, welcome to ADA's second Fireside Chat. ADA is the African Actuarial Development Academy, which is a transformative continent-wide training and development initiative aimed at advancing the actuarial profession within Africa. As the financial industry in Africa increasingly recognizes the importance of actuarial expertise, ADA is dedicated to developing and nurturing the quality and quantity of actuarial talent to meet this growing demand in terms of serving the over 1,400 insurance companies and companies wider afield on the continent. Outside of South Africa, there are less than 200 credentialed actuaries practicing in the sector compared to the under 2,000 in South Africa, and ADA seeks to collaborate with various stakeholders to increase the number of actuarial professionals in the wider African market, focusing initially on English and French-speaking offerings. And at case in point, why we are really keen to initially, even from this session, have this in French. So we're pleased to have you with us today for what promises to be an engaging 75-minute session on the topic of leading beyond technical actuarial roles as an actuary. Our first fireside chat featured Dr. Karakezi, the GMD of Africa Re, and Marjorie Ngwenya, author and past president of the IFOA, and is a really good pre-read, recommended content for anyone who may have missed it. So again, I'm Mukami Njeru, and I'm one of the co-founders alongside Yesidi Kazim and Yvonne Palm, who are on the call. Our bios and other details are on our website and other social media handles. Our session today, from Actuary to CEO, Leading Beyond Technical Roles, will be moderated by Lusani Mulaudzi. Lusani is a healthcare actuary, independent NED, and a lecturer. He's worked across the healthcare sector in South Africa for a number of years and has notably been the past president of ASA in 2020 to 2021. He's also doing a lot of public interest work for ASA, and he joined UCT in 2020 as a lecturer. Lusani is also notably one of ADA's advisors off the back of his role in the IAA Africa Task Force as the chair for a number of years, and also a member of the AEA's advisory board. Last but not least, our chief guest for this session is Wise Chigudu. Wise is a distinguished actuary and currently serving as the CEO of Nico Life for the last 1 year and 3 months. He's a qualified actuary and an alumnus of the UCT and also of Oxford University, where he got his MBA. He has an extensive actuarial technical career spanning many jurisdictions, including Bermuda, South Africa, Nigeria, the UK, and now Malawi. But more than that, his leadership and expertise continues to influence the insurance industry, particularly in areas of sustainable business development and financial ecosystem optimization. Further afield, he's an avid volunteer, and that's why he's here today and has a passion to develop the actuarial university education systems across Africa. Following their engaging conversation for the first 45 minutes, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session. So we encourage you to include all your questions in the chat function as we go along. We'll then have a 15-minute session where we wrap up and close and tell you about others exciting and upcoming initiatives. Welcome once again, and over to you, Lusani, to start off the exciting conversation.
Thank you very much, Mokami. We have lost about 10 or so minutes. So the first conversation will be about half an hour, and then we'll take questions after that. I'm very much aware that most of you will have plans after this conversation. Wise, welcome to this conversation. There are many people who have joined, so they're looking forward to learn from you about this topic. Before we get into your career, I think it would be quite interesting just to hear where you grew up and where you got the idea to study actuarial science. If you could just take us a little bit back before we talk about the rest of your career. Wise?
Thank you very much, Lusani, and good afternoon to you and good afternoon to all the listeners. So I grew up in Zimbabwe. I discovered quite early, at an early age, that I had probably above average mathematical skills. You often find that out in primary school, and you start getting intrigued by numbers. But at that time, a lot of the mathematically inclined would go for professions like engineering and medicine. And my first experience with the actuarial profession actually came from a broker who came to visit our school, promoting the Old Mutual Mathematics Olympiad. And he actually pretended to be an actuary to all of us and said a lot of things about the actuarial profession. Said actuaries make the most money, and I make a lot of money. Was driving a Mercedes Benz, and all of us got really quite intrigued with this. And then I started researching on this actuarial profession because I was looking up to this chap. I was fortunate enough to do very well in the mathematics Olympiad, and I was invited by Old Mutual to join their actuarial bursary scheme that sent students to South Africa, to the University of Cape Town. That in itself also meant leaving Zimbabwe, which at the time was quite an attractive proposition. So given the Old Mutual package and this actuarial profession with a lot of money that I had just learned right at the end of my high school career, joining the actuarial profession just became a fait accompli.
Mm-hmm. And have you managed to get that Mercedes Benz, or was that a false dream?
I would say I could say with a lot of confidence that any actuary out there will be able to buy a Mercedes Benz, which is one of the reasons why a lot of the people on this call, I guess, joined the profession, that they may be able to drive a Mercedes one day.
I must be doing something wrong then, because I don't have a Mercedes Benz. So you came to Cape Town, to the University of Cape Town. This is where I am. I'm actually speaking from there right now. So it's good that we have that connection. And you had a bursary from Old Mutual, so I take it straight from UCT. You went to work at Old Mutual. Are there things that you learned while you were here at UCT that are still serving you well in your career?
Yes. So one of the big things you learn from going to a university like UCT is just the multicultural nature of the place. When I went to Cape Town, you may appreciate it was in the late 90s, and that was when South Africa was still coming out of the previous troubles. But I ended up in a residence that had a very good mix of nationalities and a very good mix of races as well. And that allowed me to start, I think that was the beginning of my journey of appreciating various cultures and the subtleties between how people interconnect culturally. And by the time I got in my first year, it was a bit difficult, obviously, to accustom to living in a multicultural society. But by the time I finished my 4 years at UCT, I felt confident to be a global citizen.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then straight from UCT, you went to Pinelands, Old Mutual, if I understand how the bursary scheme works, or maybe you went to Zim. Now, tell us, in your first year of work, did you get a sense that you were not as comfortable with the technical roles and you would actually prefer managerial roles, or you had no idea you were quite comfortable in a technical role? Tell us that experience in your first year of work.
Okay, so I was supposed to go back to Zimbabwe to work for Old Mutual Zimbabwe, but that's when I graduated right about the time when Zimbabwe was kicking out farmers from their farms, and I felt like I looked like a farmer, so I couldn't go back. Seriously, the Zimbabwean currency was depreciating, the economy was in trouble, and Zimbabwe was the only country in the world that had a quadrillion currency. So I decided not to go back to Zimbabwe, and I joined a consultancy in Johannesburg. So at that time, I really enjoyed the technical actuarial roles. The consultancy had some of the biggest multinationals in South Africa as clients. So for instance, they were doing the pensions and healthcare liability valuations for the entire Anglo-American group. That included Mondi, when they used to have Anglo Coal, Anglo Plat, Anglo Gold, and I also had the likes of the biggest retail, some of the biggest retail schemes in supermarket schemes in South Africa, like the Pick and Pay medical scheme and so on, as clients. And because of the shortage of actuaries at the time, and because it was also a small consultancy, I was exposed to technical roles quite early. And I was also exposed to having to advise boards and executive teams quite early. And that was my first interaction really as a consultant to executive leadership, and just seeing how they made decisions, and also how my contribution also impacted on the decisions they were making. And that is where my intrigue with leadership started.
I wanted to ask that because I have a similar experience of having been an advisor to boards. And that's where my interest as well, my intrigue, like the word you use, that exposure also shaped me. So you have that experience as well. So being young and being quite well respected, I gather your interaction with the boards was quite positive. They valued your input, and the fact that you could make a difference there is that. Just tell us a little bit more about how that felt.
No, that felt very good, and it was also, so you will appreciate. It was a confluence of my aspirations and the problems that were being faced by South Africa at the time. So I'll give you a very good example. There was a problem with the AIDS pandemic that was impacting on the medical schemes. And at that time, the antiretroviral medication was not widely available, and it was way too expensive for most of the medical schemes. So we had to come up with a way to make them affordable. And then there was this whole generic medication debate. You remember that? And we were very much in the middle of that as one of the biggest healthcare consultants in South Africa. It suffices to say, given the amount of time we have, that eventually we managed to get to help the government to come up with the legislation that that opened up the gap for generic medication to be used for antiretrovirals, and also to be used widely within medical schemes, reducing the cost of the overall cost of treating that treating HIV, and also lowering the mortality in the long run. We felt like we contributed as some of the consultants that were heavily involved in that discussion. So that personal satisfaction of the societal impact that our work was having and how it was impacting on the public interest also became a major influence in my career, because the word impact now became one of the driving forces behind some of the decisions I made in my career going forward.
So leadership for you is a platform that is available or you've made available for yourself to have an impact in society. Is that how you would characterize the platform for you?
Yes. So I think I look at leadership way beyond the titles. I think with leadership, you just have to be aware all the time about the stakeholders that are around you, how you can serve them. Some of these may actually turn out to be people who may have higher titles or higher leadership positions that you have. It is not always about the people who report into you, but ultimately it's being able to steer conversations and have an influence on the final decisions, and using your knowledge and experience to impact on the decisions that people eventually make.
So let's try to unpack your self-awareness.
Yeah.
You realize you want to have an impact, and therefore, get into leadership. How do you assess yourself now to say, okay, these are the skills I have and these are the skills I don't have? And then what do you do with that? So just tell us a little bit about that self-discovery going forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a very good question. So I think there's a certain level of vulnerability that you need to have. When you want to be a leader, and that goes through my career journey, you have to be able to expose yourself. That's where the issue of networking comes in. If you are amongst people, you quickly see when you start learning body language. For instance, if you are in a meeting and you speak too much, you can see people beginning to shrug. And someone then, you have to be able to take feedback. Someone will then say to you, come on, there you spoke a little bit too much, maybe be a bit more succinct. Already that becomes a seed for how you're going to do things next time. Secondly, knowing when to speak and when to keep quiet, unless you're exposed to yourself to the environments where you need to exercise those skills, where you are vulnerable to make those mistakes, your leadership journey becomes curtailed, because we all learn through experience. I don't believe that leaders are born. I believe that leaders are curated. So for those that are still starting up in their career now, even joining volunteer organizations, or where you get to sit in committees and so on, that allows you to start your leadership journey, even though you are not within the corporate space. I used to volunteer a lot, and I used to end up sitting in committees, things like Rotaract Club, Lions Club, things like even the church, where you end up getting appointments like treasurer and so on, and sitting in committees to make decisions that affect the congregation or that affect the people you're serving. That already becomes a part of your leadership journey. And while you're in it, you will make mistakes, you'll be corrected, you will learn some things, not necessarily through mistakes, but being challenged to make decisions. And also the agency of decision making actually helps to you to hone your leadership skills as well.
Yeah, I give that advice quite frequently as well, that at times such opportunities for leadership don't arise in the workplace, and there are other places where you can begin to work on those skills. Volunteering within your professional society, within the church, as you've said, other community organizations, that's where you really learn how to work with people. So it's interesting that you have a similar experience. But then you decided to go and do an MBA. I thought that was not a very useful thing to do for an actuary. Why did you feel the need to do an MBA?
That's interesting. So I was doing traditional actuarial roles, and at some point I got to the intersection between the insurance work I was doing and corporate finance. And I got offered a role to join a private equity firm. So as soon as I joined private equity, I discovered that so there's a lot of work that I did within that job that was really attuned to my actuarial experience: modeling, stress and scenario testing, communicating complex things in simple language, and of course strategic decision making. But there were other parts of it that I hadn't really mastered as much, such as, corporate finance in itself, just deep finance, and such. And the other thing also was, I discovered that it was almost an old boys club within that private equity ecosystem, that it was people coming from the very same universities. They knew each other from there. They helped each other in fundraising and so on. And I realized that to become a part of that cohort, I needed to get that MBA from one of these top schools. But in retrospect, I eventually got far much more than what my initial aspiration was. One of which is in MBAs, you find that the key thing you learn is networking, because you're constantly working with in groups, you're constantly working with people from across the world, and that networking bit is probably what I took away the most from my experience in doing an MBA.
You're not the first person to say that. So I say people pay a lot of money for the networking, and I wonder whether there are alternative ways of getting the building a network than to do an MBA and so on. But that's quite interesting. You've already highlighted some of the skills that made you suitable for some of those roles as a CEO and so on, based on your actuarial background. I'm not sure if you left anything. You've already mentioned quite a few of them. Are there any of those things that you've left out? You've already mentioned some of them. Just what you bring from your actuarial background.
So I would classify the skills as one is technical skills, which is what the profession naturally gives you through the exam system and so on. The other one is communication, which is a skill you gain from interpreting your models to lay audiences through, particularly in the early days of your career. And as you progress over time, you start having to interact with other professions as well, and having to ensure that your language works with them. So there's communication. And then the other one is people skills, which you get, as we discussed, from participating in various, allowing yourself to participate in various forums, volunteer organizations, or even through the volunteering for the profession, and even sitting in committees at work. So, so I think the people skills are important. I think that the technical skills are important. I think the people, and then of course the strategic decision making. Actuaries are trained to think in the long term. That's what the profession does, because we're looking at managing people's assets over long periods of time before they retire and so on. We already have that long-term thinking mindset. So I think that's all put together into a melting pot are the very skills that you need if you are in a CEO position. You can always add, of course, stakeholder management.
Yes.
But as a CEO now, you have shareholders, you've got policy holders, then you've got regulators and so on. But some of these you pick up as you are growing in the profession.
Yeah. Now, you moved from Zimbabwe to South Africa, and you then went to the UK at some point. You mentioned Bermuda as well. There's also Nigeria there in the mix. But you're in Malawi, one of the smallest countries in Africa. Now, just tell us what you've learned on your journey to the different countries, and why you now find yourself in one of the smallest countries in the world, or in terms of Africa and so on, and in terms of the market as well, the financial services market. Explain that to us.
Okay, so the first question, first, I'll answer the first part. What have I learned from all the travels working on all these different countries? The key thing is cultural sensitivity. As you move into each market, there are ways of doing business that apply to that market that is tied to people's beliefs and culture. So, for instance, if you go into the UK, insurance is normal. Everyone is insured, right? In some shape or form. When you go into Nigeria, the insurance penetration is quite low. In fact, if you start selling funeral insurance because of people's religious beliefs, they actually go say, God forbid, because they believe that somewhere it impacts on the future expectation of life to actually pay for funeral insurance. So all these cultural nuances are important when you are communicating certain things to people. You have to be sensitive. You also have to find angles to communicate certain things that may be on the boundaries of their knowledge, their religion, and their culture. Where sometimes, if you are not culturally sensitive, you may end up offending people and you losing ability to do business. So cultural sensitivity is one big one that I've learned. Number two, I've also learned that a lot of the things we learn in school, there's a bookish knowledge that we have, does not always apply in different markets. So if you are in England, if inflation goes up, the Bank of England raises interest rates, you expect inflation to eventually go down. In Africa, you raise the interest rates, the inflation continues to go up, and the currency continues to collapse. It happens a lot when you are in Nigeria and in Malawi in particular. So once again, you start learning to think on your feet, and you start learning that the policy prescriptions that are needed for, or the actions that you need, you almost need to open your mind up to different ways of doing things other than what you learn from your book. The last one is, why am I in Malawi? My journey to Malawi is actually quite interesting, and it comes from the fact that I decided that I wanted to be a CEO. Okay. Somewhere along the way, and the first role that came up for that accorded me that opportunity was in Malawi and another major African country. But because it was my first CEO role, I'll bring in now the role of a mentor. I spoke to my mentor about it. There were two roles. The one in the bigger country actually paid more than the role I eventually took in Malawi. But what he said to me was, Malawi gives you a much better start to your CEO career, because you've got a lot more room to have an impact, a lot more room even to make mistakes than you would have in the higher profile role that had been offered. And as a first-time CEO, he felt that it was important that I take a softer approach to getting into these roles. But once again, you know, as they say, horses for courses. I think when I look back, maybe taking that bigger role could have been could have accelerated my career, but also maybe it could have exposed me too much at the very beginning and terminated my my future career prospects quite early. So which one would you have taken, Lusani?
I don't know. but I think and I want to focus on that, the role of a mentor. Because in this case, you're saying you actually took the advice of your mentor to say, look at it this way. I mean, at the end of the day, you had to make a decision. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with your mentor.
Oh, okay. So I met my mentor in one of my volunteer roles. I was a member of the board of directors of Africa Risk Capacity right from inception when it was set up in Bermuda. And my mentor used to be the CEO of a major multinational insurer. And he became my mentor because I was the youngest member of the board. I was in my early 30s, and everyone else was either retired or close to retirement. And there were 4 directors on that board. And you could see that I felt uncomfortable in that environment, and he took it upon himself to make me feel that I belonged, and also to allow me to contribute. I was the only actuary on the board, and maybe had a bit more understanding of the technical aspects, but I was also the least experienced in that kind of environment. So he almost took me under his wing, and from then on, we developed that relationship where the advice he was giving me on the board began to impact on my career as well in the corporate in my corporate job. And we maintained that relationship. It's been it's close to 10 or 11 years now.
It's interesting that when it comes to leadership, it becomes less about the technical aspects, in that you could have been an engineer going through the same experience here, or you could have been a teacher going through the same experience. Obviously, some technical roles do give you a very firm background if you're going to work in something like insurance and so on. But when it comes to leadership, I'm picking up quite a number of things that you're saying, that what he was teaching you or what he was advising you on in terms of your boardroom that started to sort of flow into your careers, and you've maintained that relationship over the years. That's quite something interesting. I think the young people can learn from that. Yes.
Yeah, there's one thing that I would want to say, actually. One of the first things he taught me. So I had just come from work in one of my jobs, and I was having a little bit of a disagreement with my boss. But I felt that I was right, and I wanted to speak to his boss about the issue. Then he said to me, the number one rule in your corporate career is to make your boss look good.
Yeah.
Because if you make your boss look good, not only do you increase his prospects for promotion, when he gets promoted, he will never forget who made him look good, that he could get to that next job. So for as long as you make it your point that you make your boss look good and you work hard to make your boss look good, then you can expect that however the impact of what you're doing to make you look good is eventually going to benefit you in the long run. And that's the advice I always give to analysts as they start, that it's the person who is most important in your career. It's not your boss's boss or your boss's boss's boss. It is the person you directly report into who's going to have the most impact on your career, and you should prioritize making sure that you make them look good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, let's come back to Africa. You are in Malawi. You are looking at the rest of Africa. You can see that insurance penetration is not great. You can see that even the profession itself is still quite young in many of the countries. You probably in Malawi only have a couple of actuaries that are resident. I think when I came there in 2019, I don't remember that there was any resident actuary at that point, unless if I just didn't meet them at that time. Tell us a little bit about how you see your role in that space within Africa, in Malawi, to develop the financial services industry, insurance industry, and the actuarial profession.
Wow, that's a loaded question. So before coming to Malawi, I was in Nigeria, and Nigeria had a similar problem. Very few actuaries, but you have a population of over 200 million people. When I joined the Big Four firm I was working for, I realized that the reason why we didn't have so many qualified actuaries was not because the people in Nigeria were not capable of completing these exams. It was just because the structures around their work environment did not allow them to. So they didn't have the normal study leaves that study packages that people in South Africa have or people in Zimbabwe have. And I saw a massive opportunity to bring up a new breed of actuaries in Nigeria. Number two, I discovered that the universities did not have exemptions and did not even have qualified actuarial personnel teaching at the universities. So I took two steps. The first one is I interacted with the University of Lagos, and I offered to spare half of my Thursdays to teaching actuarial science teaching actuarial science subjects at the university. So I become like a qualified actuary teaching at the university, which is one of the requirements for universities to get exemptions. Secondly, I as the head of the actuarial division at the Big Four firm, I introduced the actuarial study policy that was similar to global standards, and I saw the impact that was having on students' prospects of passing and qualifying. So with the support that this UNILAG involvement, with the support of people like Yeside and Yvonne, has actually culminated now with UNILAG getting exemptions, which is going to increase the prospects for the Nigerian market to have more actuaries, which can only be good. So when I moved to Malawi, same thing. I was only here for a couple of weeks when I realized that actually we have a lot of smart people here, but they're not just getting the opportunity to study these exams. They need a package. I introduced the package just as soon as I took over as a CEO. And now we have a lot of, we have got 5 students in the office downstairs, and they are passing their exams. And I've got 2 that I expect to be qualifying next year. So, and I've already started speaking to one of the local universities, and I'll soon be going to teach actuarial sciences and venture capital and private equity there. Because now, what is my motivation? Number one, as an insurer, I don't want to be importing actuarial skills from abroad because I have to pay in dollars, and the dollars are scarce in most African countries. Number two, I want to be able to just walk downstairs and ask someone to do a quick pricing job for me, or to do a quick stress and scenario analysis for me. I don't want to queue up for the very few consultants that are available. And number three, I can have an impact on a whole country. You know, you can actually have an impact on a whole country. To have the first qualified, second qualified, third qualified actuary coming from my office is a great honor to me. And I would like to have my name in the annals of history of the actuarial profession as the guy who started the process of having a pipeline of qualified actuaries in Malawi.
We definitely would urge you to continue on that journey, so that we would gladly put you on those annals, as you say. I just want to remind everyone that we do have a Q&A facility there for you to pose questions. We're going to be going into that time of questions and answers. So be the first one to hit the button and put in the question for Wise. I see Marjorie is enjoying this conversation. She's joining us from the US. Melusi is also another legend here who's also quite excited about what the platform is doing here. I've seen that there are even people from Suriname. I don't know if many of you know a country called Suriname. I learned about it not so long ago. An island and so on. So this is fantastic. Wise, your message is reaching all corners of this globe. And I mean, we have this platform. And what do you think we can do with this platform, the AADA, in order to facilitate some of the things that you're talking about, that you can see, so that we can see, like you spoke about Nigeria, you spoke about Malawi, but the kind of thing you're talking about, we want to see it everywhere. So what would you say, what must we do here so that we can achieve your vision?
Right. So I'm going to break this up into 3 parts, right? So the first part is just awareness of the actuarial profession. I'm sure you know, from your first question, you asked me how my journey went. It was because of a guy who claimed to be an actuary, but is not. But he started talking about the actuarial profession to us and what it is about. And without that awareness, I would never have ended up being an actuary. So making those smart, mathematically oriented communicators, intelligent people out there know that there is a profession for them called actuarial sciences. So that creating that awareness of the profession is one. So that's the entry point. Number 2, mentorship. For those that eventually get into this profession, you and I have gone through the exam process and how rigorous and how tough it is to become an actuary. As students, they need mentors. They need people who have been through the experience. And there's also the ability to wake up after you fail, because once again, you and I have gone through this process. We know that
very many times.
Profession gives you your first taste of failure as a smart student. So once again, you need people who will continue to encourage you to go on, even sometimes when you face adversity. So mentorship is really important from the time you get into the profession all the way through your technical and then your leadership journey. And this is where ADA can come in to bring this ecosystem of actuaries in the continent to be able to give their time towards mentorship initiatives. The third one is assisting people to qualify, particularly in Africa. The professional actuarial bodies that are available at the moment, unfortunately, the exams are too expensive. And the right way to get So they're expensive in the sense that the exams are expensive, the material and tutorials are expensive, and the annual membership fees are expensive. So if we can cover some of this in terms of creating local material that doesn't have to be bought in dollars, pounds, or in your case, or in rands, if we can provide the tutoring locally, as we get more of these students to qualify, allow them to volunteer, to take some time to teach at universities, then we increase the ecosystems of teachers and experienced people bringing up new actuaries. And that is another thing that ADA can do. You know, bring together all the actuaries that are in the different countries in Africa, and even in countries where you don't have actuaries, having these actuaries even giving lessons. When I was in Nigeria, for instance, I used to do the UNILEG lectures on Zoom. And I would get loads and loads of students logging in every Thursday. So bringing that ecosystem of qualified actuaries to start giving back by giving lessons and thus reducing the cost. It now lowers the bar for most people to enter the profession. And that is the only way we are probably going to raise up a new breed of actuaries for the future in Africa.
Yeah. Yvonne and Yesidi and Mukami are taking notes. So some questions have come in. The first question says, how did you get called for the CEO opportunity? Were you headhunted or was it a referral?
It was a bit of both, because it was through a client contact. In fact, the initial message was, can you help us to find a CEO for this particular company? So when I then did my research on the company, I'd already suggested some people for the role and forwarded the CVs. And then when I get to learn a little bit more about the company, I thought, well, maybe I may also be interested in it. And it was through that client that I was then referred to the board of the company, and thus became my journey towards being recruited.
Wow, so it's a mixture. You were not quite headhunted, but
Yeah.
it became like a referral. But there was already some kind of familiarity. They knew you and so on. So it became an easier conversation. So I think somebody can take notes from that. Second question says, good afternoon. This is Paul from Zambia. I wanted to find out if a career starting in auditing is detrimental to my career development in the actuarial space, given that I have a degree in actuarial science.
Wow, that's a very interesting question. So it now depends on what you're doing within auditing, right? What you want, ideally, if there are opportunities for you to get exposure to actual actuarial work under an actuarial supervisor or an actuarial mentor, if you can get that opportunity, I think that would be ideal. But I do know that in some economies or in some countries in Africa, you actually don't have that kind of, it's very difficult to get that kind of start because you have a very small actuarial, if any, community, if any. So starting in auditing is not a train smash, but if within the firm you can get some exposure to doing actuarial work or to work alongside the consulting actuaries that your audit firm uses for some client engagements, then take that opportunity. But first things first, you need to get a job. So if there are no actuarial jobs in your market, then taking a job with the audit firm is probably not a train smash. The opportunities may arise when you pass more exams. Remember, the actuarial profession is a passport. So after you've passed a certain number of exams, you may get an opportunity to go to another country where you can then join an actuarial firm and work under actuaries. And your experience as an auditor will not be wasted.
So some initiative there would be required, but it's important to just be very practical as well. You know, you gotta get a job, and you know, sometimes you have to make do with what's available in that market, but not lose sight of the vision that you have. Next question: what can we do to help promote the actuarial profession, create opportunities for those abroad who want to come back home to give back?
I think the world has really become global now, which means that through platforms like the one we are having now, you can actually have an impact even while you're abroad. So, for instance, I know that on this call, you are in Cape Town, Yvonne is in Lagos, and Mukami is probably in Nairobi, and yet we have people from all parts of the world coming onto this platform. So you can begin to have an impact by speaking to ADA. You can volunteer through ADA and begin to engage in fireside chats like the one we're having, or to begin to participate in offering tutorials, and that thus becomes your journey. In terms of attracting people back to the continent, first, the jobs have to be there. We have to be practical. So the first thing is to create that awareness among the corporates of the roles that actuaries can play. And that's the role that ADA can also play, letting the corporates know that actuaries are far much more than just quantitative nerds. They can contribute towards strategy, towards risk management. They can contribute towards leadership. And as companies bring in more actuaries and become more aware of the role that actuaries play, then it's the demand for these actuaries that is going to create opportunities for people out there to come through.
Yeah. We have a question here from my twin sister, and I say she's my twin sister because I always follow her footsteps. She did the first fireside chat, and now I'm doing the next one. It's Marjorie. She says, "Wise, being a leader comes with many benefits, but also a great responsibility to do the right things. What ethical dilemmas have you faced, and how did you handle them?"
Oh, Marjorie,
She got you. Yeah, she got you.
I think part of the actuarial job, particularly for us actuaries, and it comes throughout your career, particularly when you start taking senior regulated roles, is how to manage policyholder interests with shareholder interests, and where the policyholder is more or less a silent partner, is a more or less a silent stakeholder in that you are making decisions on their behalf, where the shareholder is more your senior and can actually show you the door, and you sometimes have to stand up for the policyholder, sometimes at the risk of the ire of the people who pay your check. So throughout my senior career as an actuary, there have been moments like that where I have to take a stand that, well, this one particular decision is not going to be good for, while it may benefit the policyholder, it may not benefit the benefit the shareholder. It's not in the policyholder's interest. So that decision will not work. I think we all face that at some point in our careers. And I think that as actuaries, we have that moral obligation to continue to stand for the public interest, sometimes to the detriment of our careers.
Yeah. I think what I've experienced and continue to experience is where as on the public interest front. I mean, you discussing public interest in the context of an insurance company, and it's quite critical there, as you've highlighted. And there's also a level where you're now talking about the citizens out there that are not at the table. And we need to be mindful of we should always be, but at times we're not mindful of their needs and what needs to be done. So that is another level of a public interest. But I mean, it's equally important, but it goes to show the principle. I have a question here from Emmanuel Beyamu. He didn't say, or she didn't say from which country, although I can hazard a guess, but I won't. Says, my question goes to Mr. Wise Chigudu. For people to be qualified, they have to write exams. Currently, those exams are really expensive, which may require someone to start working first. How best can you help willing students to start taking the exams while they are still students?
So thank you very much. It would have been good to know where the student is writing from. But the first part, which is one of the key pillars that I understand ADA is focused on, is to ensure that the local universities can get exemptions. That takes away the pressure of paying for actuarial exams right from the beginning. The exams, yes, are truly expensive. And if the local universities could get hold of ADA and start getting onto the journey of getting actuarial accreditation, that is particularly important. So if there are any lecturers or any university actuarial personnel on the platform, get hold of ADA and let's see and challenge them to start your journey towards accreditation, and that will take care of a big chunk of the expenses you're going to encounter. The second one is to encourage corporates to pay for these actuarial exams on behalf of students. But it's important that the corporates also know what they get out of having actuaries in their workforce. And part of it is the students will eventually get jobs. Once you get a job in the workplace and you have gotten in as an actuary and you are put on an actuarial study program, please, you are not in university, go show them what an actuary can do. Demonstrate to them. We have actuarial students here in the office, by the way. They have been absolutely amazing. They've not only done the traditional actuarial work, they've done work around AI, they've done work around systems optimization, they've done work around, asset optimization and so on. And that has now encouraged us to continue to fund more and more actuarial students. If we get this as sort of like your pilot for how we grow the profession in Africa, then it is this, that the universities begin their actuarial programs, they get the actuarial programs accredited. And as for us, actuaries who are already in the markets, continuing to show that the actuarial profession is accretive to a company's prospects.
Thank you. And you are challenging ADA, AADA, and Yvonne has responded in the chat to say, yes, we are already, taking up that challenge. We have an education pillar to assist universities with accreditation. So from the beginning, when we started having these discussions about the need for this kind of platform, that was one of the things that I raised in those discussions, that we need to look at it. So yes, there's a lot that still needs to be done to develop that, but that is certainly the intention. Here's a question here from Anonymous. He says, much appreciation for creating legacy of establishing actuarial functions wherever you have been, in particular in small countries like Malawi. Will an actuarial society in a country like Malawi add value to developing actuaries, given that there are not many actuaries there? And have you done any work to help build the society, the actuarial society?
Thank you, Lusani. So I'll answer that question in two parts. So the first part is there any benefit at all? 100%. So if you are particularly in a market where you have one actuary and loads of students and aspiring actuaries, one-to-one mentorship becomes very difficult. What you want is to have sort of like a platform like loads of actuarial students look, and you can have chats and talks like the one we are having now. And then you can, when they're gathered like that, then you can also do Q&As, and you can also go and motivate them as a group. And you can give them the career nuggets that they need to grow as a group. So yes, it is very important to have those actuarial societies, and I do hope that in every country we will end up with actuarial societies that also people like ADA can work with. It's always easier to work with an organized group of people of similar interests than it is to work with individuals. In terms of what I've done in Malawi, yes, there's a Malawi Actuarial Society, but admittedly, I haven't been able to impact as much on it as I would have wanted, but that is because of just competing priorities. I do hope to be able to impact a lot more as the burden eases. But yes, I would encourage actuarial societies and in the individual countries.
Yeah, so I mean, just to add, I mean, it was mentioned earlier that I've been involved through the IAA, the task force focusing on Africa. I've been chairing that for maybe about 4 years now. And from the beginning, that was our focus. Even the time when I was a deputy, we were focusing on building the actuarial societies in different countries. And that's one of the reasons why I came to Malawi in 2019. But it became quite clear that if we were going to impact on the education front, we needed another platform, and hence the birth of AADA to work alongside the actuarial societies to build the profession in the respective countries. So the two strategies work hand in hand. So I agree with your answer 100% there. The next question says, most people seem to push actuaries towards CRO roles as opposed to CEO roles. There seems to be a bias towards people with an accounting background to be CEOs. How could we get around this? And I don't. Anonymous doesn't say which country has a bias or accounting as a background, but let's see what your experience is with this view.
That's actually very true. And I was a head of risk for many years for insurance companies. I think that first of all, our skills definitely suit the chief risk officer or risk roles a lot more. But it's how you then use that platform, because once you're a CRO, you're now in the executive committee. And there are certain attributes of an executive team member that you now need to pick up, not just from your specialist risk role, but also from a strategic business leader. And this is where most people lose it. They go there believing that they are only there to sit and talk about risk issues. But if you become the kind of chief risk officer who takes risk as an opportunity and opens up opportunity for the business to do even more business while you're in the process of playing your chief risk officer role, then you stand out. Because as an actuary, you know a lot of things that other executives in the room don't know. Your challenge only is to know what they know and to know what interests them, what would make them appreciate you more. Over time, I've seen a lot of actuaries become CEOs, particularly in South Africa. You have a lot of insurance companies that are being led by actuaries, but you find particular attributes of the actuaries who take these roles. One, they are good communicators. Two, they are good networkers. And three, they are people who can break down very technical concepts into very easy into easy words and succinct messages that the rest of the executive team can understand and relate to. So building up on your communication skills, building up on your business and commercial acumen, and building up on your leadership skills definitely put you in good stead to become a CEO. Don't become the guy behind the models, even as you go into your executive career, or the guy who's always trying to speak a complicated language. If distribution comes out of your mouth in a meeting, you better be talking about distributing dividends or distributing something else other than a normal or Gaussian distribution. If ever you say, then you are probably on your way out of
a normal distribution.
Oh yeah, exactly. No more, or a Pareto. If you ever use that in an executive meeting, that is a career limiting language.
I mean, your observation is very accurate. I mean, one of the famous actuaries in leadership in South Africa is Desmond Smith, who passed away a few years ago. And one of the units he led during his time coming up was distribution. He led, and not the normal statistical distribution. You can't lead that one. But distribution, he led that, and he made a fantastic CEO, board member, and on all that. So I think those are very good observations. The next question from Nyarai says, thank you for your presentation, sharing your experiences and learnings. I commend you on taking action to grow the profession through initiatives to supporting your staff and teaching. I have a question on how did you manage to get support, particularly advocating for staff support, given it also comes with costs for an organization? Also, more generally, how can you push for change despite maybe facing resistance? But I guess you were the boss, so it was easy to make some of these changes.
Actually, it's not as simple as that, because the forex exposure, the foreign currency exposure that comes with actuarial exams for a start, and of course, all these extra leave days, they are a cost to the company. And I had to get the actuarial study policy through the board. The more important thing was I told them that the actuaries bring a lot more than just mathematics. They will make our business function better. And so when I got the policy approved, I started off by just getting 2 students or 3 students to form the actuarial division. But because I had made this statement that they contribute, I also made sure that I gave them projects that were relevant to the problems that the business was having. So as they were working through these solutions, I would then take all the work that they've done, the recommendations that they've made, I would take them to the board so the board can begin to see the extra dimension they were bringing to the business, particularly things like stress and scenario analysis, showing what particular exposures would have on the business financially, things like being able to demonstrate what diversification brings to our portfolio, things that were foreign concepts, and just using their knowledge to begin to impact how we actually operate the business. It didn't take long. I could have given examples if we had time, but it's once the business began to appreciate the role that they were playing, now they were saying to me, why don't we get more people to come? Why don't we have more actuaries in the office? So some of these other problems that we have shelved, they can begin to draw through the data and give us data-driven solutions.
Thank you. We wish we had more time. There were still a couple more questions to tackle, but we do have to stop it at this point. And we want to really thank you, Wise. I think you gave a lot of wisdom. I think whoever named you Wise was very wise. So I think it's very good. So thank you very much. I just want to hand over to Mukami. Thank you, Wise.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I wish you all great actuarial careers. And I hope to see more of you going through the career ladder and becoming CEOs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lusani and Wise. We just have a couple of announcements just before we wrap up. So please just bear with us, because one of them is a huge opportunity to continue this discussion with Wise. So I would advise you stay tuned for at least another 5 minutes. So the first item is a group mentorship opportunity with Wise. He has agreed to continue this discussion. We've had loads of questions and we can see people are interested. So please, what I'm going to suggest you do is take out your phones and scan that QR code that you see there, because we are going to limit this to just 15 people, and we are going to consider the order in which you applied to be able to get people to make the cut. So take out your phone, scan that barcode, fill in the form. and submit an application to join this 90-minute session where you get to discuss further with WISE. It's going to be on Wednesday, the 23rd of April, and we are targeting actuaries, obviously in Africa. Sorry, those of you in the abroad. But it will be actuaries in Africa with more than 5 years of experience, just so you can get the most out of WISE's knowledge. So please do that. I'll leave this just for one more second for those of you that are slow to with your draw. But yes, 15 people only. So please take advantage of that opportunity. The next exciting announcement that we have is that we're going to have our first property and casualty or general insurance actuarial foundations course. We are extremely excited about this too. It's sponsored by the Casualty Actuarial Society in collaboration with Werner Advisory and a casual fellow. So what do you get with this opportunity? You're going to get access to a PNC or non-life, general insurance, short-term, whatever you call it, pricing and reserving course that covers the basics. It is, again, targeted to actuaries within Africa, but this time it's for those with less than 5 years of experience. So we haven't forgotten you. We've given those with more than 5 years of experience an opportunity. Now those with less than 5 years of experience, you have one too. It's going to be an online course. You get access to 44 lessons, which covers 15 hours of video instruction. You'll also get access to some property and casualty mentors, so experts in the field. I have volunteered to be one of them, so hopefully you'll enjoy discussing with me as well. That will help you solidify these concepts. So please, again, you can scan this QR code to apply. The deadline for the applications is April the 13th. We will also post this online for you to get more information about that. So we're really excited about this. It's our first pilot. There will be a second chance later in the year as well for those that might miss this opportunity. But again, this is also only limited to 15 people. So take advantage of that. Next, or second to last announcement, somebody mentioned something about mentorship. Somebody mentioned something about how people abroad can get involved, and also how everybody within Africa can get involved as well. So we'll be launching our one-to-one and also small groups to one mentorship program. So we'll have a call for mentees and mentors coming out. Please do follow our LinkedIn page and check that out. The application deadline will be April 25th, so watch out for that. And this is a great opportunity for anybody to get involved. We're a firm believer that those of you that are abroad are our largest resource. We also believe that somebody with 1 year of experience can definitely mentor somebody who is in university. Someone with 5 years experience can definitely mentor someone with 1 year of experience. So please do check this out. You should be able to sign up to be a mentor. You should be able to sign up to be a mentee. And the last announcement we have is that our next Fireside chat will be in French. So apologies again to the Francophone members we have that the translation wasn't working so well, but our next Fireside chat will be in French just for you, and we'll have English translation, but don't worry, we'll make sure that is working this time around. So please, again, check that out on our LinkedIn page, and that session will be held in Q2. So I'm going to stop there and hand over to Yeside.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. So thank you very much. I recognize that in the interest of time, I just wanted to share a little bit about where we are as ADA and our pillars and how you can get in touch, how you can stay connected with us. We have 4 pillars: the education pillar, the professionalism pillar, mentors, and our tutorial pillars. And Yvonne has talked a lot about some of our upcoming initiatives on that. WISE had aptly mentioned volunteering and how we want you to become part of that. If you recall, he mentioned that the power of volunteering is not just in what you give, but what might come back to you, and how it's helped shape careers, open doors, and build lasting networks. Maybe you might be able to network at less than the price of an MBA. So please come and join ADA and connect with us. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to point you to our website and our socials, and stay connected with us across the piece. We look forward to having you all on the next event. or the next thing we're doing as well. Thank you very much. So